Hello, everybody. My name is Michael, and welcome back to Last to First. So, day two has come and gone of preseason testing, and it was a more interesting day two than day one. I think we're starting to see a bit more trends in the teams, and yeah, just getting more and more excited for the start of the season. So, next thing you know, will be day three, and then on to next weekend for the actual first race of the season. So, let's get into things. So, kicking off with the number of laps completed for each team, Ferrari came out on top with 138 laps, which is pretty solid given the impact on running earlier because of the drain cover. Something about Ferrari and drain covers just mesh really well. Sauber had 135 laps for the day, Red Bull 129, RB 128, Aston Martin 127, Haas 124, Mercedes 123, Williams 117, Alpine 111, and then McLaren down at 87. So once again, another really close spread for the teams for the amount of laps completed, showing generally good reliability, except for an outlier like McLaren this time, who had some issues that caused them to not be able to run as much. But yeah, some teams managed to still get some good amount of laps in. Now, the fastest lap of the day actually was Carlos Sainz. He wound up with a 1 minute 29.921 for the fastest lap of the day. So, a pretty strong showing for Ferrari and Sainz today. Rounding out the top 10 had Perez at 0.758 off of Sainz, Hamilton P3 1.145 off of Sainz, Norris P4 1.335, Ricardo again in the top 5. He wound up 1.490, Leclerc 1.829, Stroll 2.108, Ocon 2.140, Bottas 2.306, another good showing for him in the top 10, and Piastri rounded out the top 10 at 2.407 off of Sainz. So next up for my team ratings for day two and just some overall thoughts about each team's day. Starting out, gotta go with a 10 for the drain covers. Once again, it's another day, another Ferrari getting destroyed by a drain cover. I mean, jokes aside, it's getting pretty unacceptable how frequently this is happening now. I'm not sure why this is the case, but it's surprising that something worse hasn't happened yet, and thankfully nothing worse has happened yet. But they certainly need to get a hold of these drain covers flying up. It's really crazy. Seems to be more prevalent now. I don't know if it's because of these new ground effect cars. It really sucks the car to the ground even more now. I would imagine that's probably the case, but I guess it's happened in the past too. But either way, it's something that they really need to get on top of it. It's funny. Ferrari have still been in talks over being compensated for the last time that it happened in Las Vegas. So I can imagine that this is only going to help Ferrari's argument in getting compensated for those damages, which I think is very fair, given that's something that's completely out of their control and something that realistically shouldn't be happening. I was very surprised that the FIA did end up extending the afternoon session by an hour, which was nice. I was worried that the drivers just wouldn't be able to get any running in for lost time, but luckily they did extend it an hour, so that's good for all of the teams. They certainly need that time. So, in all seriousness, moving on to the actual teams, once again going in reverse championship order from last year. For Haas, I'm giving them a 9 out of 10. It was another steady day of solid laps, and Magnussen's long run pace seemed to hold up well over the course of time, suggesting that maybe they're starting to get a better understanding of the tire wear. So maybe positive signs for Haas. Still not looking the quickest, but if they can get a hold of that tire wear, then that's going to be a good step in the right direction. Now, Sauber had a better day than day one. I'm giving them a 9 out of 10. They looked a lot more convincing on track than yesterday, and they had the second most laps, so showing some good reliability. They still are not looking quite the quickest, but overall they looked a bit better today. And boy, do those green cars really show up on the track there. It's pretty cool to see. For RB, I'm also giving a 9 out of 10. Kind of similar to Sauber. The car seemed to be a lot more stable and predictable for the drivers on day two. We still don't know the true pace of of the RB compared to the teams around and compared to Red Bull in particular. But of course, we're really not going to know that until the first race of the season, like with all the other teams. But once again, Ricardo managed to get another quick lap to get into the top five. So encouraging signs for Ricardo and for RB in general. And for Williams, they had a much better day two than a day one. I'm giving them an 8 out of 10. It was a lot more clean and productive. They seem to have been able to tune out some of the unpredictable and challenging aspects of the car, which is good. They certainly needed to get their head down and have a more positive day today since there was quite a lot of lack of running yesterday. So they really needed the laps today. Even though they can't make up for missing what they missed yesterday, it's still important that they get some good solid running in today. They seem to be kind of putting down expectations for the year, but they still have some hope. Albon thinks they can at least start off jogging, maybe not running, but they can at least start jogging to get the season going. So some more positive signs for Williams in day two. Moving on to Alpine, I wasn't particularly impressed with their day today. I'm giving them a 5 out of the 10. It feels like a pretty middle of the road day for them. Kind of, I guess that kind of sums up Alpine thinking about it. But they seem to be struggling with grip regardless of the driver, and just overall the car doesn't look too planted, doesn't seem to brew much confidence in the drivers. But they still did manage to, or I'm sorry, and in addition, they managed to get the second least amount of laps for the day, so not ideal. But like I mentioned, the spread is pretty low, so just a few laps could make or break the difference of a few spots in who had the most laps. But overall, not so impressive day for Alpine in my books. Aston Martin's day two was another quiet one that I just didn't hear too much about it. I kind of tried to follow along on Twitter and different platforms like the race. And yeah, I'm giving them an 8 out of 10, but there just hasn't been too much that I've been seeing about them. They seem to just be kind of getting on with their plan and not making much of a fuss. The car does seem reliable and consistent. And according to Gary Anderson, he's really intrigued by some of the design choices that they have. So maybe that's positive signs for Aston Martin. I feel like they're a little behind on overall pace, but it still seems some encouraging signs from Aston Martin. McLaren's day two was a bit rough. I'm giving them a 4 out of 10 for day two. I feel like as testing has gone on, I've been getting a little more worried about McLaren. Maybe worried is too dramatic, but they had some issues on day one, but still a strong day. They had some issues with the floor on Norris's car, and then today he also had a fuel system issue that kept him out for much of the afternoon. So once again, another little gremlin that was creeping in that prevented them from getting some running. They had the least laps on the day, and overall, it just wasn't a very clean day for McLaren. It looks like they might be maybe third or fourth fastest, and then they're having some of those reliability gremlins. So hopefully they can iron some of that out, and I hope they'll be a bit more competitive than what it's feeling right now. Now, off track, Zach Brown, the McLaren CEO, has been making quite the fuss lately, especially about the RB team. So that's been pretty entertaining. He's really popping off about how the FIA needs to change the rules about having a team own two teams, like Red Bull owning RB. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any other teams join in. I think it's really going to depend on the competitiveness of RB. But I feel like Zach Brown probably is hearing some rumors about RB or is seeing something that's really sparking this in addition, that he's probably fearful of RB having a really strong package this year. So only time will tell if anybody will join his crusade. But yeah, he's really been popping off. Moving on to Ferrari, there has been quite the hype coming out of them towards the latter half of day two. I'm giving them a 10 out of 10. They had the most laps completed for the day, and it seems like they've made some really big gains in race pace in particular. People are getting really excited about their race pace. It seems to be quite a lot faster than last year, and it seems to be quite consistent lap over lap. So it seems like they may have got on top of some of their tire wear issues, which maybe that's why Haas was also looking a little more consistent since they share a lot of the pieces there. So interesting to see that crossover. But Leclerc was saying that it seems to be, or I'm sorry, not Leclerc, but the car seems to be a bit less wind sensitive than last year, and it seems overall the car to be working as intended. So that's positive signs for Ferrari. Um, Before some of these times were coming out in race pace, I think everybody was a bit worried about Ferrari if they've been a bit too conservative, if they didn't quite make the step, but maybe they have some encouraging signs with their race pace there. Leclerc said that it's been that it looks a lot, or it feels a lot more drivable this year. And yeah, so if the drivers are getting a good feel from the car, then that's positive signs for Ferrari. Moving on to Mercedes, they had another kind of quiet day. I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. They were on the lower end of the number of laps completed compared to the other teams. And yeah, they're just not looking overly impressive. I think they're really just still trying to understand this new concept that they have. They seem to be struggling a lot with understeer on entry and oversteer and exit, which makes for a challenging and unpredictable car for the drivers. So hopefully they can iron some of that out. Hamilton did manage to get into the top three for the day, but yeah, overall they're not looking like they are the quickest. Lastly, moving on to Red Bull. Now, maybe this is just a product of Perez being in the car and not Verstappen. Verstappen always pulls out some magic, but I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. And I just wasn't overly impressed with Red Bull today. I mean, they did have a strong number of laps as well, and still looked quite promising, of course. But I'm sure they just had a different plan in general. In addition, with Perez in the car, it's definitely going to be different in terms of race pace and overall pace of the car. But one of the issues that cropped up, or a couple of issues cropped up for Perez, and that was him possibly having a power unit or a gearbox issue. He was driving really slow to the pit lane, and I didn't hear anything more about it if there was any official answers, but some potential reliability gremlins there. And he had a brake fire in the garage, so not the biggest deal ever, but a couple small things there hindering his day. Even regardless of all that, there's been a lot of pessimistic rumors coming from the paddock that Red Bull is potentially half a second to even a second faster than the rest of the teams, according to Mercedes engineers anyway. So, hopefully it's not quite that big of an advantage. Hopefully Ferrari's a little closer or somebody. But, you got to take all this with a grain of salt with some of these rumors. But, yeah, either way, Red Bull looking ominous ahead of the season here. So thank you everyone for tuning in to my day 2 recap of preseason testing. It was an exciting day. I'm looking forward to day 3, bring you another recap from that, and then we're on to the first race of the season. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.